Hi kids. Okay, so I decided to do a video talking about the proper way to breathe. And I know that might seem silly because, we were born breathing, but we're not doing it correctly. And I guess it wouldn't be that silly if you're following Breathe and Believe because, the whole breathe part of Breathe and Believe. But anyway, so we are a culture of overbreathers. We are a culture of people who do not breathe correctly. And the ancient yogis throughout history knew the importance of the breath and how much it has such an impact on our mind, our body, and our spirit. And that's what we teach at Breathe and Believe. And it's something that, I think that the more we can get this information out, the better, because there's a lot of things that we were taught incorrectly, and the longer we go doing that, the more harm that it has. So we're not going to be those people. We're going to teach you how to breathe, and then you can share this information with other people. So something like just an underlying thing to know is we have this autonomic nervous system, the automatic nervous system, and it's basically governs our fight or flight system. And so it's our stress response and our relaxed response. So we used to think that we didn't have any control over our automatic nervous system or autonomic nervous system. And so then, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You're just there for the ride. But that's not true. So our lungs, actually, like the breath, we do it with unconsciously, we do it automatically, and yet we can also intervene in it and change the way that we're breathing. So that's cool. We can hack into it. And the breath is directly connected to our autonomic nervous system. Our autonomic nervous system, because it's governing our fight or flight, has such a huge impact. We are an overstressed society. We are full of anxiety, full of things like bombarding us of like, be afraid. And so we're in fight or flight most of the time. We have all these things to do. And when we're like that, then our organs, they can't digest the way that they're supposed to. They can't function the way that they're supposed to because they're too busy thinking that there's a bear in the room and that we need to fight it or run the heck away. Otherwise, we're going to die. So it's literally in survival mode. The energy is not flowing to our organs. That causes problems over time. I mean, I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but all of these diseases that aren't like a broken arm type thing, most of them can be tracked down to a stress response or an emotional impact that's being done to our physical body. There's such an overlap between them, and our breath is a way that we can hack into that and correct that. And so that's what we're going to talk about. All right, so first things first. Nose breathing. Nose breathing is so important. If you are a mouth breather, if you catch yourself like going on this and mouth breathing a lot, then you're creating damage to your body. First of all, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. Think about it. Like if you think you got to run from something, you want a lot of air in to get your body moving. So if you're doing that, then you're sending a message to your brain, to your nervous system, that there's something to be afraid of. And so you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. There might be a time when you want to do that, but for the most part, if we're breathing throughout the day with our mouth open, that's a problem. We're overtaxing our system. Also, when we mouth breathe, we tend to breathe up in the chest. And we don't want to be doing that. That's also sending messages of fight or flight to our body. So we want to be breathing into the lower part of our belly, into the diaphragm. So also, when we're nose breathing, we can filter the air that's coming in. You think about like viruses floating in the air or impurities, allergens. We're just sucking those suckers into our lungs. And when we use our nose, those lovely nose hairs and all those other filters are in there to try to get that crap out. And then we get boogers and have to blow them out. Anyway, so that's why we should not be mouth breathing. And you can look at pictures. I'm guessing maybe you could even Google this, but in our training, they showed us pictures of side-by-side people of how our face structure actually can change from mouth breathing. You can have, like the whatever the scientists determined as like the more attractive faces, which tend to be like for men, like the more defined jawline, that sort of thing, it changes for mouth breathing and actually shifts things to make it more of like a weaker pronunciation of the jaw. So it has a lot of effects. When you're doing that, you're reconditioning your nose, so it becomes harder then to nose breathe. So when we're nose breathing, not only are we filtering the air, nose breathe, it also releases nitric oxide into our system. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, so it opens things up, like can reduce inflammation. It just gets our energy flowing, the circulation flowing so much more efficiently. You've heard of the little blue pill? Like, it's nitric oxide. It's opening things up and letting the blood flow to where people want it to flow. So maybe just try nose breathing and you wouldn't have to get the prescription. I can't do that experiment. Anyway, so it also can increase our immune system. It's great for like these viruses flying around to make sure that we're nose breathing. If you're a person who snores at night, has sleep apnea, if you wake up with a dry mouth, or you have a partner that's like, dude, you're breathing through your mouth all night, then you're probably a mouth breather. So something that many people do, and we encourage you to do this, is to tape your mouth shut at night. That sounds maybe a little bit extreme, but just take a small piece of tape. You could use a Band-Aid. You can use, they actually make, it's like a 3M type tape. I can't remember the name of it, but you just can take a little strip and just put it here, and just to kind of keep it shut. If you really needed to breathe through your mouth, you're going to be able to breathe through your mouth, but it conditions you to breathe through your nose while you're sleeping. And some people who have done this have like the next day reported that they've had such an increase in energy. So that's something that can help. And then just being intentional throughout the day to make sure that you are nose breathing. All right, so that covers that. Now, the next big part to breathing is something, the acronym is LSD, to help it be easier to remember. And what that is light, slow, and deep. So light meaning we're not taking in that much air. We tend to think like if I like taken a bigger volume that's better. Like what do we say? Take a deep breath, like when you're stressed. So then we what? Right? And that's just activating our sympathetic nervous system. So if you're like freaking out and somebody's like, you need to breathe, take a deep breath. And then you do that, like sometimes it might feel good just because you're stretching everything out, but it's not actually calming you down. So what we want to get in the habit of doing is light breathing. You want to not be taking in that much air. And that's conditioning your body to increase your tolerance to carbon dioxide, which actually seems counterintuitive, but the increased tolerance to carbon dioxide actually allows for a more efficient gas exchange with oxygen. Like if you're taking in more oxygen, but you have a low carbon dioxide tolerance, then you might be breathing a bunch, but you're still feeling winded, or you're still like lacking energy or something, because your carbon dioxide isn't there to help get it into the cells. So we need to increase our tolerance to carbon dioxide. And so that's the light part, because then, I mean, you'll kind of feel like I'm barely breathing, and that feels uncomfortable, and that's kind of the point. So you got to get used to that discomfort, and it gets easier as you go because you're retraining the way that you breathe. So that was the light. And then slow, we should be like, pay attention to how many breaths per minute you're taking. And most people are probably around 12 to 15. That's average. That does not mean that, like, and they say that that's normal, but that does not mean that it's optimal. Think about our normal American diet. Yikes. So that's not healthy. So the healthy range is 5 to 6 breaths per minute. So that's a long, slow inhale, long, slow exhale. So you're talking a 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale. So we want to be paying attention to that through the nose, and like we're barely taking in. So you can say like, well, 5 seconds, I can take a lot of air in 5 seconds, or I could take a little air in 5 seconds. That's why the light is going to be important. So you just want to barely breathe in through the nose, barely breathe out, and then continue to do that. And that's going to help our system be optimal. Then there's deep. So again, we're used to hearing, take a deep breath and going, and that's not what we mean by deep. We mean deep, like going deep in the water, like going deep into our body and tapping into that diaphragm. The diaphragm it's connected to so many things. It holds a lot of emotions, and it's just not used really because we're used to breathing up here. And so we want deep belly breaths. We want the rib cage to expand on the inhale and contract on the exhale. So we want to be paying attention to that. Like you're intentionally sending the breath deep with every breath that you take. And if you are kind of understanding that maybe you're not breathing the way that you should, maybe you're breathing up here, maybe you're breathing through your mouth, maybe you're taking, I don't know, big deep breaths all the time. You know, whatever it is, some combination of all the above. If you recognize that that's a problem for you, then it's a good idea to take time throughout the day, set a timer. You could be doing something else, or I would encourage you just to like be focused on it. Sometimes it's nice to just anchor these practices into something you're doing already. Driving, going to the bathroom, doing dishes. But you're paying attention and you're intentionally inhaling through the nose for a count of 5, exhaling through the nose for a count of 5. And you're paying attention to decreasing the volume, so you're going to feel air hunger. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You want it to feel uncomfortable. That's strengthening your lungs, it's strengthening your system, it's retraining your nose. And so you're getting the nose breathing, you're getting the light, the slow, and the deep. You're feeling into your belly and you're making sure that that's expanding. So doing that 5 to 10 minutes, 3 times a day, that's a good practice. And then as many times as you can throughout the day, just checking to see how you're breathing. If you have like a friend that you trust or are around quite a bit, or a family member, you know, let them know that you're doing this. Maybe you can do this for each other, and don't be a jerk about it, but just call each other out kindly and gently when you notice the other, or if they're noticing you breathing improperly, because it's all about intention. However old you are, think about how many breaths you've taken. So every single one is just like a habit being developed. And, you know, so that's going to take a little bit to correct that, but it doesn't, if you're intentional about it, it's amazing how quickly that can change for you. So we'll do another video too on Bolt score, and that's a good way to measure how efficiently you are breathing. So then if you're doing these practices, it's just nice to have that measurement to see that you're making those gains, to know that you're doing it right. Alrighty, so there you go. Breathing 101. Sorry it took you X amount of years to finally learn how to breathe properly, but here we are.